Well, welcome back, folks, to another edition of Jack's Corner, where truth and reality have a seat at the table. We've got a lot of ground to cover today, but the most important topic I want to discuss is the invisible coup that has been taking place with the aid of the treasonous Democrat left, who over the last weeks of violence in Minnesota and Minneapolis, you have not heard one Democrat call for an end to the violence, nor have you heard one Democrat call for the rule of law. They love and live in the chaos. That's because their masters are our foreign enemies. Liberals have never built great societies, but they can destroy them, and they do it pretty quickly. And that is what we are fighting now and fighting against, as well as the laziness of the right. Liberals make virtue of crime, such as patriotism. In fact, they make disagreeing with them a crime. They are irrational, but once again, how do such misfits work their way into power? It's by default. It's by the toxic toleration by the right, which is a term I don't like using. It's the conservatives, Christians, and Republicans that have allowed the Trojan horse into the city. So with that, let's get into it. It's been known for a long time, going back to the Greeks, what is known as a Pyrrhic victory. That is, you win the fight, but it's so costly that you have gained nothing and will likely lose the war later on as a result. Moreover, in today's warfare, particularly between the superpowers, the destruction would again be nothing that would benefit anyone, because there would just be total destruction. And on that point, let me remind you that the United States, under previous leadership, created our enemy and our superpowers. Basically, the superpower of China. We created that. In fact, there was a time when we could have prevented Russia, but we didn't. We have been such bad stewards of God's blessings upon this country. We deserve nothing other than outright judgment for our inexcusable failures in doing what needs to be done when needed. So with that said, and given the Chinese overt overtures and clear intentions of world domination, how do they go about accomplishing their ends? Well, it's not by a bomb, but by internal subversion. You take the country over from within, and you gain influence with all of the elites within that country and the elites within the United States. You recently heard me mention Peter Schweizer's bestseller, The Invisible Coup, how American elites and foreign powers use immigration as a weapon. It is shocking, depressing, and compels you to want to hold mass treason trials for what has been allowed to happen to our country. Just to remind you of some of what Schweitzer talks about, first of all, as our neighbors to the south invade, they vote Democrat, thus changing our national government. Then we have the Muslim activist groups who helped elect the likes of communist Muslim Mayor Mondami. They created their own cities within our country, like in Texas and Dearborn, Michigan, and elsewhere. Governor Walz of Minnesota imported tens of thousands of Somalians, and as is now known, it was for their votes. And the Democrats allowed nearly $9 billion of fraudulent payments to be made, all for the purchase of the Somali votes. Then we have the Chinese gaining birthright citizenship so their kids can affect our elections, and I'll get into that later. But let's not also forget the open admission by Mexican leaders and their intent to take back America's Southwest. You see what's happening when you don't pay attention? This is Civil War 2.0. A shot will never have to be fired. You have been and are losing at the ballot box, folks. So here's some headline bleeps that I think are noteworthy, just to help solidify into your mind just the depths to which the Democrat left have gone. St. Paul's mayor said recently, every single person ICE took is loved by someone. Well, as for Mayor Herr, that's exactly what I would expect from a radical Democrat leftist, playing on the goodness in the hearts of others when hers is empty and vacant. She's full of logical fallacies, and by her standard, anyone who commits a crime that might be loved by someone is immune from the laws. Folks, this is the type of tripe that you have to shut your ears to that's coming from the Democrat left. And you should know this tactic really well by now. because the devil himself whispers these types of things in your ears every day. So why would you not recognize the same deception when it comes from a Democrat politician? And you've heard it for months and months now, particularly coming out of Minneapolis. Folks, it's every one of them that does this. This is not just an isolated incident. They've done this for decades and nearly destroyed your country. And now they are defending the hardened criminals amongst us and protect them from who? ICE. See, they've made our law enforcement the enemy, and they are protecting the violent. They are protecting the criminals in our society. Okay, let's go to the next one. Monday on CNN's The Source, former White House advisor Susan Rice for Obama and Biden, she said the Board of Peace for Gaza was President Donald Trump's attempt to play king of the world.
The problem with this Board of Peace is it's not a Board of Peace in which the represented countries have a full voice and a vote. It's Donald Trump's attempt to play king of the world. He is the sole convener. He's the sole decider of who participates. He's the sole decider of how much people have to pay to God knows whom to be able to be permanent members of this thing. And above all, he's the only one with a veto.
Here's another example of where the Democrat left is divisive. They plant these poisonous seeds in your mind, but let's think this through. During her time in the White House, essentially under two presidents, millions of people were killed in wars. Yet in just 1 year, Trump has ended 8 wars and on the brink of ending the Ukraine war, a war that can be blamed and placed at the feet of the Democrat left. They've got the blood of 1.5 million men and women on their hands. Remember, the Democrat left is the party of death, from abortion without limits to endless wars. Now, President Trump wants to bring a permanent peace to Gaza and rebuild it for the people. But her attack on Trump's attempt to bring peace to millions is just one more wart on the character of the Democrat left. Okay, now, you will love this one. Mexican officials all the way up to the presidency have openly embraced mass migration into this country as a form of accelerating their Reconquista, the term used to describe the reconquest of U.S. territory that previously belonged to Mexico. After all, Mexico's Jewish communist president offers no surprises other than what she and her parents have always been, authoritarians and communists. Well, we need to wake up and we need to be countering these measures in the Southwest. Now, you've heard me talk about the Civil War 2.0 in this country. Well, let me give you a little hint about how you may have already lost. In Schweitzer's book, The Invisible Coup, Schweitzer said on the Birthright Citizenship, the Supreme Court is considering the Birthright case, which states that if you happen to be in the United States and have a child or a child is born, that child is automatically becomes a U.S. citizen. Here's the problem with that. The federal government has no idea how many children are granted citizenship through this birthright citizenship. Every year, they have no clue. That's astounding. An army is being bred on our own soil, folks. Our government doesn't keep track of it. They have no idea. They don't even list the nationality of the parents. Now, when it comes to the Chinese, their research firms have looked into this, and the numbers are absolutely horrifying. According to their numbers, it is believed that every single year for the past 13 years, roughly 100,000 Chinese babies have been born in the United States. Now get this. This will really send you into orbit. These babies are taken back to China as they are of the elite military officers there. These babies, American citizens, all go back to China, raised in communist schools, and then when they turn 18, they're going to be able to vote and donate to political campaigns as directed by the Chinese Communist Party. They're going to be controlling our votes and our elections in this country. Our enemies will have basically a vote in our elections. This new wave of voters are going to be voting in a couple years. Think about this. The 2016 election was settled by approximately 80,000 votes. Friends, this is not a random case of people who happen to be here and they just happen to give birth to a child. The Chinese have perfected this model of subversion, and they are going to use it against us unless the Supreme Court does something about birthright citizenship. We're the only country in the world that allows this. You are losing your country, and the Democrat left are happy about it. Why? Because they are of the same political philosophy as the Chinese and Russians, and they are all authoritarian. Now, here's another installation as to the character, or the lack of one that is, in the Democrat Party.
So now ICE is using a 5-year-old boy. A 5-year-old boy. They took him and used him to lure his father out. And now they've detained them both. The family doesn't know where they are. This is the worst of the worst. This is not humanity in Minnesota, folks. If you can look at this 5-year-old and actually with a straight face still support and be silent in the face of what the Trump administration and Kristi Noem is doing, I just can't even believe this is America.
They tried to convince you, along with the liars in the leftist media, that ICE was now kidnapping 5-year-old children. The story had about a 48-hour lifespan. You probably saw it. It went viral. But the purpose of the lie was to enrage you and to affect your attitudes just long enough so you can alter your vote in the future and put the liars in power. Look at this congressional leader from Minnesota and her lies. She's hyperbolic, and every time I've ever seen her on TV, when you do a fact check, she's a proven pathological liar, and those who live in her district must do everything they can to remove her from office. So what were they really talking about? The media took a picture of this 5-year-old little boy whose father ran off from ICE agents, leaving the 5-year-old out in the cold. So what did the media and criminally dishonest Democrat politicians do? They wanted you to believe that ICE was apprehending a 5-year-old child. What they didn't tell you about in this story that went viral is that ICE was not going to leave a 5-year-old child out in the freezing weather. So what did they do? They took him to a fast food restaurant to get some food and made sure that he had shelter. And then once they were able to round up or find other family members, guess what? The family members refused to take him. But oh no, the demons from hell that find it so easy to deceive you want you to believe that ICE is heartless and was apprehending this child. They are trying to get the public to believe that ICE is kidnapping 5-year-old children. They know it is a lie, and now that you know it is a lie, and most should by now, as it has been widely exposed as one, why would you ever vote for these people again? Why aren't you calling their offices? Why aren't you calling your own representatives and telling them they've got to go? Then we have AOC. She is always happy to get in front of the TV cameras and accuse ICE of kidnapping children, and she knows it to be a lie. We have to have penalties for this kind of conduct, not just at the ballot box. But listen to this latest statement she just made. Saturday on CNN's Newsroom Live, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC, said that the fatal shooting of Alex Pretty in Minneapolis was an execution by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is, and if not, should be a sanctionable event, and people like that need to be removed from office. This is very dangerous, folks, because we have too many public educated idiots in this country that buy into these lies and narratives and act on them at the ballot box. Mr. Pretty brought a gun to a protest. In Minnesota, that's against the law. Folks, just 50, maybe 100 years ago, this type of conduct by an elected official would have earned these people the harshest of punishments and complete ostracization from society, if not execution for treasonous conduct themselves. You don't know the extent of these people's treason. It is absolutely almost unfathomable. Oh, and I certainly can't overlook this senator from Connecticut who had the audacity to say that ICE was deliberately traumatizing children. Can you imagine that? Here you have these ICE agents who themselves have families and children, and they are the most compassionate when it comes to these children, but are treated like dirt by these liberal psychotics because it benefits them politically. Remember, the Biden administration allowed millions to come into this country. Tens of thousands of children went unattended, and they were flowing across our borders. But when you hear about these things and learn about the corruption of the left, it should be a stench in your nostrils to the point where you can't tolerate it. And you yourselves have to get up off your couches and start doing something about it. In these podcasts and my articles, I have given you the things that you can do and need to do. I have given you an action plan, several action plans. And this Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, I dare you to find a time when he has ever spoken the truth. You will not hear the truth from this man, nor will you hear it from the media or the Democrat left. And now they tell you that ICE was picking up 5-year-olds as Murphy has just done. Here's the truth. The father of that child was and is an illegal. ICE tried to detain him, but he ran off, leaving the 5-year-old. According to officials, the mother refused to take custody of the child when ICE brought the child to her. Just think about that. Now, while I'm on the Democrat Party, which I almost always seem to be, but it seems to be the focus and the concentration of where evil is today, it's one of the devil's biggest footprints next to Islam. Let me remind you that back in the 70s, the anti-abortion movement was more bipartisan, and in fact, 107 Democrats signed on to what was then called the Hyde Amendment. But now there is no diversity even within the Democrat Party, and that's why you hear me so often refer to them as I do. They have now become, with the exception of less than a handful, a cabal totally controlled by everything that is morally corrupt and evil. If you would just take the time when you hear a Democrat talk on TV at night and just do a little fact check, you will find no truth in them. So given that one statistic that I just gave you, there is no moderation or moderates in the Democrat Party in this country. Okay, now here's another white liberal female who worships government and her Democrat left colleagues. Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays. Get this, she does not consider immigration and customs enforcement, that is ICE officers, to be real law enforcement. Mays claimed that ICE officers are poorly trained. Well, folks, with those words alone proves that, number one, she's unqualified to be Attorney General, and number two, she has no clue what the qualifications are for being ICE officers. She went on to say, "We are watching you. If you violate an Arizona law, I will prosecute you. We will investigate you, and we will make sure that Arizona laws are enforced." Mays discussed Arizona's Stand Your Ground law later in the interview, and she said, you have these masked federal officers with very little identification, sometimes no identification, wearing plain clothes and masks, and we have a Stand Your Ground law that says if you reasonably believe your life is in danger and you are in your house or in your car or on your property, you have the right to defend yourself with lethal force. To any of my listeners in Arizona, you must immediately band together and demand this woman's resignation as Attorney General. And I hope and pray that our U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi will quickly find the means to put Mays in cuffs, charge her and indict her for the mere suggestion that ICE officers could be shot. This has gone long enough. The Democrat left is the enemy of America, and I keep telling you we are in Civil War 2.0. Okay, now I've been, as you would expect me to do, listen to a lot of people, a lot of commentators, and a lot of podcasters, and I've been hearing some good things from a Phil Miller, who is a fellow brethren of the law and consultant strategist who has been echoing a similar message to mine. I have been yelling for years with regard to what I term as toxic toleration. Miller gives the consequences of such. Accordingly, he says what happens when tolerant people tolerate intolerant people, the intolerant people take over. That seems pretty logical. We cannot allow these people into our houses, whether that would be our literal home or whether it be in the form of our city, state, or county governments. We cannot afford to lose control of something that we've so arduously built over the centuries. Miller calls it the tolerance paradox. It infects society where well-intentioned people believe that tolerance in and of itself is a good thing and they can take it to the max. And it's been proven that if tolerant people are tolerant of everything, and that's what we've been so guilty of, they will be tolerant of intolerant people, and intolerant people, because they are that way and they don't play by the same rules, will slowly control your society and eventually turn your society into one of complete intolerance. They will seize power. And folks, you can see this happening right now. You can see who these intolerant people are bringing in to your society. The Somalis just ripped you off for $9 billion, and you complain about affordability? Seriously? Here is an example directly on point. The Ugandan Muslim communist, who is now the mayor of New York City, then Ilhan Omar in Minnesota, and the Somali community there, took you for a $9 billion ride on taxpayer money, some of which went to help Somali terrorists. Then you have the criminal political class, like Governor Tim Walz and the mayor of Minneapolis, Fry, and so many others on the Democrat left who use these people and their votes to stay in power. As Miller went on to say, we seem to have a suicidal empathy and we think tolerance is a virtue in and of itself. I'll take it a step further and I say it's not empathy, it's not virtue, it's sin. The toleration of sin and cowardice and faithlessness that will provide no sanctification or salvation for you who get caught up into this, what I've called toxic toleration. The system we have is a luxury that you can apply when people play by the rules. But when you bring parties into your organization or into your country who are intolerant, you will lose control of your country because of what Miller calls the tolerance paradox. It's time for us to stop being not just a little firm about the people we invited into our houses, but we need to start purging incompatible cultures that are destroying us. Now, here's a controversial topic for you, but then what isn't today? In an interview with New York Post, Trump made it clear that he detests Puerto Rican rap star Bad Bunny, who has taken shots at the U.S. immigration policy in the past, as well as longtime pro-leftist and anti-Trump group Green Day. Trump said, "I'm anti-them." I think it's a terrible choice, and it does sow hatred. Well, let me give you a little preview. You got Bad Bunny, who is going to take to the stage at the Super Bowl halftime in a dress. Now, as of today, he's rethinking that. But is this really what you want your kids to be watching? And are you so addicted to your comfort and conveniences that you will turn a blind eye to it and toxically tolerate it? The toleration paradox? So come Super Bowl time, are you going to be a patriot or are you going to give in? Are you going to stand on principle? This is your opportunity. Just as with sin, you don't wait until it's on your doorstep to decide how you're going to deal with it. You do it well in advance. Okay, folks, well, here's another one, and I want to take you for a moment to what I call the shame of Louisville, Kentucky. This U.S. Congressman Morgan McGarvey really put on a performance here, or so he thought. Just listen to how he spews these lies out in soft tones, pretending to be outraged, and then I'll be right back with some commentary on it.
ICE has murdered another American again. Let that sink in. They have murdered another American again. And this is on top of the campaign of terror that Donald Trump's personal police force has been unleashing on all of our communities. They are separating families. They are using children as bait. They are taking parents out of their cars and pinning them to the ground in the pickup lines of their kids' school. They're dragging people down the streets. And who's doing it? It is these ICE agents hiding behind masks and machine guns, acting with impunity and even immunity from this administration. It is sickening that our government is doing this to us. And they're lying about it. Don't let them. I talked to a pastor from Kentucky on the ground in Minnesota right now. He said the gas is so thick for blocks that people can't even breathe. We have to stand up. We have to stand up like they're standing up in the streets of Minnesota in sub-freezing temperatures. We have to stand up like they're standing up in the halls of power from Davos to Denmark, because that's what this administration understands. You're looking for something to do, let's stand up and call the Senate and tell them to stand up and not give DHS a single dime until this stops. Because when we stand up together, that's how we make this stop.
Okay. I hope many of my neighbors and constituents and listeners here in Louisville are outraged as I am right now. This McGarvey fraud has accused law enforcement of murdering another American again. What an outrageous slander. One thing you will never hear the Democrats talk about is who the ICE agents are arresting. As I have said in prior podcasts, it's murderers, thieves, child rapists, and the list goes on and on. Folks, the Democrat left is complicit with the criminal activity of the illegal aliens that ICE is arresting. McGarvey needs to get off the drugs. And like the rest of his colleagues, they don't want to talk about the 3 million people that Obama deported and how Obama used ICE for that purpose. In another outrage from this congressman, he says that ICE is using children as bait when he knows full well that Biden allowed over 100,000 children to go missing in this country who are at the hands of these criminals, using them in sex trafficking operations. Shame on you, Mr. McGarvey. Shame on you. Next, McGarvey said that he met with a pastor from Kentucky and Minnesota. I can almost assure you that McGarvey has never talked to a pastor, much less has ever even seen one in his lifetime, because he is a pathological liar and he knows it. The only reason he maintains his position is that he is not subject to thorough interrogation and cross-examination for all the lies that he tells and gets by with, because we don't have a media that will do it. So for all of my fellow constituents and listeners in Louisville, Kentucky, you need to put McGarvey on your list as one who needs to be ousted from Congress this year. Well, folks, that will do it for this episode, but don't forget to check out our Bluegrass Chronicles thread for other articles and podcasts and books. And until then, I'm Jack Richardson for Jack's Corner.